It's the County Conversation, episode 11. And this week we have an update from around the Blast grounds, as well as a conversation with Somerset's Will Smeed. Smeed made the headlines late in 2022 when he became the first English cricketer to sign a white ball only contract before making his first class debut. 18 months on, our very own Nick Friend sat down with Smeed to talk through how it's going, a desire to move away from being just seen as only an opener, and despite not playing against the Red Bull, the importance of training against it. Here it is.
Hello and welcome to this latest episode, this latest part of this latest episode of the Cricketers County Conversation. I'm joined by Somerset's, I was going to say Somerset's list all the other teams. I'll just go for Somerset's Will Smeed, who is obviously mid-blast. Thanks very much for being with us. How's it?
No worries. Thanks for having me on.
How's it going so far?
Good. I think it's been good fun, and now we're back on top of the table, I think. So hopefully we can stay there and sort of get a run of wins going, and build some momentum.
Back in the natural habitat after last year. This is obviously for you. This is your second season as a, I guess, sort of fully fledged white ball only cricketer.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, just to start with that, like, what does your day to day look like? I mean, talk us through, like, obviously now you're in the middle of the Blast, and you know it works as it for you as it will work for everyone. But something like 4 months between your first team competitive game and the start of the Blast. Like what does that period look like when you don't have that, you know, at the very least, that string of sort of two Champo games going on in the background? How have you plotted from?
So from the time I got back from the winter, I guess, because I was away all winter, I had a few weeks off, sort of saw some friends, caught up with some people, and then I was back in training. Obviously everyone at that point started playing their Red Bull games, but I've said before, I'm very fortunate that Somerset are very happy for me to sort of train whenever suits the coaches, and they're always happy to help. So I think from, I'd say, late March or early April, I was in hitting most days. I guess there's not much cricket I play in April competitively. But I was training a lot, gymming a lot, and just trying to get ready for this block. I guess there were a few things I wanted to work on. I felt like I had a lot of time to do that, because obviously I wasn't playing a 4-day game or something like that.
When you say hitting, what does hitting look like in a, I don't know if we're sort of talking like March, April with the Blast starting end of May? Like, I don't know, like when we spoke before, you talked about still doing the odd bit of Red Bull stuff, just the odd bit of Red Bull netting to, sort of keep your foundation and stuff like that. Is it that, or is it, or are you trying to, I don't know, are you working on new shots, or are you trying to bash it over long on in March? It's a bit of everything.
Yeah, it's a combination of things, I think. Obviously, from a technical point of view, it's always good to face a Red Bull because it moves. So it'd be a bit of that, facing coaches on the sidearm. If there was anything specific I wanted to work on, it'd be on the bowling machine. I spent a lot of time sort of playing around on the machine. We've got a machine you can set up yourself and sort of just nestle in. Spent a lot of time playing around on that, trying to get good at some new shots and just sort of bring them into my game. And I was pretty lucky with the way the schedule was set out. I think before the Blast, I had a good couple weeks of white ball training with Somerset as like a second team. And then we had 5 or 6 games as well. So I was very fortunate in the way the schedule sort of ended up being this year. And then obviously throughout May, I was playing club cricket and stuff as well. So it felt like I had a very nice sort of progression through to be ready for the Blast. And I did feel ready when it came about.
How have you gone the club stuff?
We won 3 out of 4 I played in. I averaged 50 something, so it was decent, and that's with a Red Bull.
Is that because I feel like there's been, I don't know, call it a misconception or a perception or whatever, that but I guess a lot of guys who go white ball and later on in their careers do that partially so they can be looking around for opportunities all the time and that kind of thing. But when we've spoken, you're not milling around Taunton in April, May, frustrated not to be at the IPL. Like, that wasn't your reason for going this way, was it? Like,
not at all.
I mean, so I know that, but because we've had this conversation, but I don't know. Can you explain? I guess like the reasoning behind. Yeah, I don't know. Just like explain the reason behind the decision. Also, yeah, I guess like how you, like, I guess why it benefits you now, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think where my game was at in terms of red and white ball, my white ball stuff was going really well and my red ball wasn't. And to bring my sort of longer format stuff up to the level I'd want it to be, I think would have started to detract from the white ball stuff in terms of the amount of time I would have to dedicate to that would be pretty much all my training time. And then I wouldn't be spending any time trying to improve at T20 or as much training time. So I think for me, it was sort of eyeing up, like, how can I reach my potential in white ball cricket? And I think for the time being, that was very much sort of just put all my eggs in that basket. For then, I was very aware of the risks I'm taking. I know it's a very cutthroat and it changes all the time, but I was very aware of those risks. And yeah, I'm still very happy that I made the right decision for me. I'm absolutely loving all the cricket I'm playing at the moment. Every time I go to train or play a game, I'm looking forward to going, and I think that's a really nice headspace to be in.
And I called you before I started recording. You're fundamentally interesting because I couldn't. That sounded like the right way of putting it. You as you said, what you did at the time was the announcement when it came was different and unique, and obviously guys have done it before, but not without that foundation. Generally not without that foundation of first class cricket. Would you? Don't know. Like, I know your circumstances are like particular to you, but would you recommend it to other players? Because I guess when you first did it, a lot of people said, "Oh, now this will, loads will follow immediately," and actually that's not been the case. Yeah, I don't know. Would you do you go around recommending this route to people, or do you feel like you were just in a particular position with, as you say, with your red ball game versus your white ball game, where it made sense for you in a way that it might not make sense for other people?
Yeah, I think if you look at my circumstances, they were very unique. I was averaging probably about 10 in the second team for Somerset. But my T20 stuff was going well. So, I mean, if we're being honest, if there wasn't white ball cricket, was probably going to be looking at getting released from a contract if it was just red ball stuff. So I think I was very unique. And I think when we spoke before, I mentioned that sort of all my peers had a very different path into professional cricket. A lot of them played first class stuff first and then sort of got thrown into T20 stuff and things like that. So I think, yeah, my path was very unique. I wouldn't say I go around recommending it to people either, because like I said, it is a massive risk. But I'd like to think all the stuff I'm doing around it in terms of the degree and stuff sort of helps to take the pressure off of that, and it means I can still just go out and enjoy it.
And with the rest of it, you spent a lot of the winter away, but didn't spend much of the winter playing. Is that, I don't know, I mean, I guess it's the nature of the franchise game, but like when it's your bread and butter, how frustrating can that be?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, you always want to be playing. That's with sportsmen, we want to be playing. But I think I felt like I was pretty good at seeking out any opportunity to develop. I was training a lot, working with some really good coaches. So I don't feel like I've come back from the winter having not improved at all. I feel like I have improved, and I think that's a big thing for me. I'm aware, like, I might not be a regular starter in a lot of places at the moment. Obviously, that would be the ideal, but for now, I think going away is as much about trying to improve as it is play and do well, because I think obviously you never know if you're going to be playing or not, and it's just keeping yourself in a position that if you do play, you're ready to go, I guess.
Who have you taken the most from of the guys you've worked with abroad? I don't know, like whose brain have you? I guess who've you badgered the most?
I think it's been really good. So my Emirates, chatting to Nicky P and Polly and people like that, who have sort of, Nicky's one of the best T20 players in the world at the moment. Polly's been one of the best for years and years. So yeah, I think they're great people to talk to. I really enjoyed working with Shane Watson at Quetta this year as well. More so from a mental side of things, he's massive on that. So I think that was fascinating and sort of opened up a whole new area of development, I guess. Sort of he stressed the importance of your mental side as much as the physical stuff. And obviously we've been told that before, but I think coming from someone like him who had the career he did, then that was very, very interesting. Yeah.
You mentioned Pollard and Perrin there, like two blokes who've also done brilliantly, but done brilliantly mainly in the middle order. Don't know, have you thought about, because I guess the other risk of being an opener is that you are one of millions. Like,
yeah.
And I guess you're one of even more million. Yeah, I guess like the odds halve if you got, I guess more and more teams want on left hand, right hand at the top of the order.
Yeah.
So you're sort of like looking at one role as one of many. It feels like you've got the game to stand in the middle order and belt it at the death. Like, I don't know. Like, is that have you looked at that as a have you looked at that as something? I don't know, like as a way in.
100%. I think I'm never just training as an opener. I think the stuff you practice through training sort of suits the game the whole way around. And like you said, I feel like my skill set might almost be more suited to middle order / trying to whack it at the end as opposed to facing a new ball up top. I think because when I first started playing, I batted in top order, and sort of that's just always where I've played. I'm potentially pigeonholed a bit as an opener. I've been working on the skills you need through the middle, and I mean, I guess I have to prove that at some point. It's just someone's going to have to take a risk and chuck me in the middle. But
I was going to say, how does that go on?
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm very keen not to just be pigeonholed as an opener. And similarly, I've been trying to bowl a bit more in training and stuff like that. So if Lewis needs an over here or there, I'm there if he needs it.
I couldn't even guess what I see me put you bowl offies.
Yeah, a bit of everything, but mainly offies.
Sort of round arm, darty,
just
wide Yorker.
Yeah.
How do you? I guess the same thing with the opening. Like, how do you get someone to take that gamble on you as a finisher? Because there are more and more guys who are recognizing the value of that role as well.
Yeah.
I mean, got like guys who finish well. I guess it's probably the most volatile position. It's obviously harder, less consistent. So the guys who do it well are very valuable. But how do you? Does it take dropping? Would you drop down the order in the blast for Somerset? Would you look at batting 3, 4, 5 with the hundreds? I guess they're the two comps you've probably got a little bit more control over as a domestic player.
Yeah, I think it's very hard to do it in comps.
Yeah.
So take Somerset, for example. They look at our team and go, "This is our best team," and with our team set out in the best way for the team, I'm probably opening or batting in the top 3. So I think, it's a weird one. It might just come about randomly at some point. I think I've batted 6 for Somerset once, and that was a few years ago. So these, like, it can just happen randomly. But I mean, I guess it's just making sure the coaches are aware that I would like to give that a go. I'm showing them that I hopefully have the skill set to do it as well. And I'm not really sure how it will come about, but
be aware of the
go at some point. Yeah.
Have you become more aware of that sort of niche, like through being away and watching? I don't know. I guess like watching the way that your own franchises, but other franchises sort of set up, and I don't know. I guess just sort of seeing firsthand how competitive that opening spot is. I guess you've seen it quite in the last couple of years, particularly. And I don't know. It feels like the one position at the top of the order where, like, if you go a couple of games without a run, there just is someone in reserve.
There's a lot of people waiting. I don't know. I think it's just making yourself as valuable as possible, isn't it? I think if you can fill more than one role, that's obviously more attractive to a team. So, I think as a youngster especially, it's about always developing your game, always adding new strings to your bow. And I think the more roles you can fill, if I could bat 1 through 6 or 7, then that'd be perfect. So obviously it's just about continuing to trying to work on things like that.
How do you look at this summer post blast? Like, for anyone in your position, you've obviously got 100 coming up, but you've got so yesterday there's a Cayman Islands T10 that's popped up, and obviously and there's the Aberdeen T10 I've not heard anything about for a couple of months, but that's that popped up in whatever month that was. CPL towards the end of the summer. There's obviously obviously Lanka Prem's about to start as well. Like, there's obviously loads going on. But as we said before, with like the way you've tried to construct this for yourself, like, what works best? Is it a case of filling up your calendar with as much cricket as you can, or I don't know, or are you pretty comfortable sort of playing your English summer, as it were, with the 2 white ball blocks, and then sort of being in a position to rest a bit before what you hope is busy winter? Is that what's the balance? Have you worked it out?
I think if I could choose, I'd be busy now through until end of September, October, probably. Obviously, it depends how the summer goes and what pops up, but yeah, I think it's just talking to people and trying to find the right balance, I guess, of saying, right, this is a block I want to potentially be at home and work on some skill stuff, or this is a block where I want to be away and playing cricket, and just trying to manage it like that. And yeah, I guess make sure I'm not away too much, but it can get tricky, I think, if you're away a lot, and especially if you're like in and out of teams and stuff. I think it's just about, I think just finding the right balance. It's
What's
that
the
thing
toughest?
of, I think, if there's time I feel like I need off or want to work on something specific, then it makes sense to be at home. But to be honest, I don't feel like I need any time off. I'm raring to go. I'm loving playing, so I think that's where I'm at the moment.
In terms of blast, I don't know. In terms of how you impress in a summer, is it? I don't know. I mean, where does the blast sit in? Obviously, you want to have a good comp review go, but like, you've got blast, you've got 100 in the summer. Is it, in terms of impressing teams for winter stuff, like, is the 100 is it easier to do that through the 100 than the blast? Just, I don't know, I guess just looking at bowling attacks and sort of condensation of talent, and is that the way you, don't know, like, is that how you look at it?
I think the 100 probably does get more exposure, due to the fact I think every game's on TV. There are less teams, so I guess you could say you're facing probably more. The bowling attacks are potentially a bit more rated, I suppose. I mean, obviously I want to do well in everything I play in. I think the 100 is probably the one where if you do really well in that, then that tends to open some doors. I think probably just due to the fact, like I said, it's less teams, full of international cricketers. I think teams really look at that.
So obviously your time in that, going back a couple of years, so was that in a way, do you feel like that knock opened a lot of doors?
I think I'd had a good PSL that year as well, so I think I'd already shown sort of that I could score runs at franchise level. But yeah, I think that was as much for me just a confidence thing of like, I can do it at this level. I think a lot of the time teams pick you, especially when you're young, off the fact that they see potential or they like you, and it might not be as much about performance. But yeah, I mean, cricket is a funny one. It swings and roundabouts. So I think the main thing for me is just continuing to enjoy it and trying to do as well as I can.
And also change this year with the end of the blast back to the end of summer. Like, how does that work? How does that work? Because in a way, you talk about being busy through September, like that. I guess in a way that does that, but also if the blast was condensed, it was post 100, then you could go seeking a CPL gig for, the back end, for example. Like, and I guess from a performance perspective, how difficult is that? Obviously, not that you've had it yet, have you? But how much more difficult is it to sort of finish the group stage in July, and then the blast, even post 100, the blast is 3, 4, 5 weeks away. There's those knockout stages. Like, how? I don't know. How does all that work out for you? Would it be better if it was just straight through to mid-July as it was for the last few years?
Well, I've had both. Obviously, I think the first year of the 100, the knockouts were after the 100, so I've had that, and then obviously last year where it was all straight through. I think it's a weird one because I think as a team you sort of lose all momentum. But obviously, individually, if you've gone to the 100 and done well, then you feel in a good place coming into it. I think it just takes the sort of momentum aspect out of it. If you finish the groups on a heater and then you're into a quarterfinal, you're full of confidence. But obviously, it's a bit of a reset having it at the end of the 100, and I think that will work in some teams' favours and against other teams. But I think it's just about how quickly you can get back together as a group and gel again and sort of, just be ready to go.
Because the Blast is brutal, isn't it? Like you can win a 14-game group stage, and your reward is a quarterfinal. Like, and you can get burnt pretty easily, can't you? You can do all the right stuff, be by far and away the best team, and lose, as you say, like, particularly after that break, you can lose a quarterfinal to a team that a month and a half ago might have snuck its way into the knockouts. That is, I don't know. Like you've played a lot of comps. Is that for that reason? Is this one of the harder ones in a way? Like, just, I don't know. You've got to be very good over a very long period of time.
Yeah, it is hard, I guess, because once you get through to knockout games, it's anyone can beat anyone really, and there's like you said, there's not really much reward on whether you finish first or fourth.
Not just for the Somerset hat, not just for the Somerset hat on, but like, would you change that? Like, I mean, like, should there be more weighting toward, if you're going to play 14 group games, should there be more weighting towards, winning that group stage?
The only way I could see them changing, or the only thing that I think, because there are so many teams, right? You can't just go straight the group plays each other. I think the only way you could possibly change it is 2 and 3 from each group play each other, and then they play the first in another group. Or I don't really know. To be honest, I quite like it because it keeps everyone in it. I mean, I like it. I enjoy quarter. It's nice playing knockout games. There's more pressure on it. We've been lucky enough. We've had 3 home quarters in a row, so the crowd obviously love it. And they're always.
I guess that is the incentive winning a group, isn't it? You get a home quarter. That's the.
Yeah, definitely.
It's the extent of the reward. What would you change up the groups? I don't know. I just look at the. I don't know. I feel like you get into a rhythm every year in the Blast of sort of seeing the same games between the same teams. Would you? I know it works regionally and stuff, but would it be nice to like play size? There'll be teams that you've never played in T20 cricket, probably a fair few.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, would that be nice? I don't know how feasible it is, but like
in an ideal world, it would be nice, but the geography of it, I think, just makes it impossible, and the schedule, like we were saying, you can't have Durham and then Kent the next day. Like that just doesn't work. I think the scheduling would become a nightmare, and I think it's also you build some rivalries, I guess, by playing the same teams all the time, and there are some teams you'll have good tussles with, and teams that really want to beat you when they play you, and obviously there will be a few teams I've never played in T20s, but I can't really see it working another way, to be honest.
Do you what you touched earlier around for the time you said for the time being committed to white ball made more sense. Is there a time that you can see? Can you see yourself like at some point in the future just like dipping your foot in the Red Bull water, as it were, like reversing this, almost like the more you commit to this, the less sense would that make?
Maybe I'm never saying never to that. I think the way I could see it coming is it may be like I just want to play a game to get some match practice in, and then that game might go well, and then it might be like, okay, well maybe I don't know.
Signing Red Bull only before that.
Not sure about that. I mean, maybe. Who knows? Like I said, cricket changes so much all the time.
What about the middle ground? Obviously, 50 over cricket is still white ball cricket, but you played one List A game. I know you played. I know there was another game in that warm-up series that wasn't given List A status, but
annoyingly,
quite annoyingly.
It went a bit better than the official one.
Your number. It's like how is that an ambition? Obviously there's the next 50 over World Cup is 3 years down the line. You are certainly not unique in not having a natural pathway to playing domestic 50 over, but I don't know. Is that still on your radar? Like playing, say, you got, for those who don't know the background to this, you played for the Lions in those 2 warm-up games against the Africans a few years ago, and you got 0 off 2 in one game and 91 off about 50 in the other game. And typically the one that was 0 off 2 is the one that had List A status. but like also obviously you've got a game for it. I mean, obviously not the game for it because I guess 50 over and T20 are increasingly similar in its formats, the way that people go about it. Like, is that on the radar? Is it as much as it possibly can be on the radar given the way schedules are now?
I'd love to play it. I love batting in 50 over cricket. I think, especially as a top order batter, it's the nicest format to bat in. I wouldn't say anything's like particularly on my radar. It's just sort of whatever's in front of me is sort of what I'm thinking about at that time, and just try and do well in that and see where that takes me. Obviously, it'd be nice if we could play 50 over cricket, but the way it's set up at the moment, I don't see that changing anytime soon, really.
But for England, like if England came call in and said, what are your, like, would you be, I don't know, would you be keen? It's presume I don't know, it's a weird one, isn't it? Because there's no, I guess, there's nothing to pick people on, is there really? 50 over cricket wise, unless you're picking guys out the one day cup, but that obviously comes underneath 100. So like is that? But yeah, like you said, essentially, like you'd be up for it.
Yeah, 100%. The 2 games I played, I really enjoyed. So,
so if the cards had fallen the other way around, you'd have a lovely looking list A average to log in and look at. But just finally, let you go. What I don't know. Like, what does a successful year look like for you? Is it weighted? If we take 2024, like is it run weighted, or is it? I guess some of the things we discussed, like the way that you, I don't know, like the way that you're perceived, whether you're, if you can find that role in the middle order at some point, get that go, or even if it's just like the number of deals you pick up for different comps. Like what constitutes at this stage like a successful, like the year that you're after?
At this point in time, it's just contributing to winning games for Somerset for now, and then Phoenix in July, August, and then seeing what comes of that. I think if I finished the summer with those 2 trophies, then I'd be pretty happy.
What was winning the Blast like last year?
It was amazing. It was, we're such a tight group, so I think it sort of felt like we were winning with our best mates as well. So yeah, it was the best feeling I've had playing cricket. It was a bit of a relief as well, because obviously we'd had a few finals days before that. Not,
I was going to say, like, was it
not done particularly well? So
was it stressful? Like you'd won, because as you say, you had those near misses, but you were also, I don't know, like by far and away the dominant side last year. Broke so many records along the way for games won, wickets taken, all sorts. It was like the perfect comp in a lot of ways. Which I guess, I don't know. Does that like did that put like more stress and pressure on the final than if you had just sort of mucked your way through it?
Not really, because I think, like I said, once you get through to the knockouts, it's anyone's game. I think we'd beaten Surrey once in the group games and beaten Essex twice, so we knew if we played well, we'd win. Obviously, they were both pretty low scoring, but to be honest, our bowling was that good the whole of last year. It never felt like we were going to lose any of those games. Essex got off to a flyer, but after they lost a couple wickets, it never felt like we were going to lose. It obviously got pretty tight in the end in the final, but yeah, I think one more boundary and it might have started to get a bit stressful.
If that ball flies through short third and not into Tom's hand, and just on the bowling, like obviously Ben Green had a brilliant year last year, and he's started similarly this year. Like he is, you'd have said going into last year's Blast, like the least, probably one of the lower profile names in that side. Certainly played like less T20 cricket abroad, etc. What does he? Let's say what did he do? What's made him so effective? It's because I think until Matt Henry cleaned up in that final, Ben would have walked away as the leading wicket taker of the comp, and say like he started very similarly. What makes him so effective?
I think he's a lot more skillful than people give him credit for. I think he's very clever at what he bowls when, and he doesn't often miss. So he'll hit his Yorker, his slowly will land where he wants it to, and his bumper's normally at your head. So I think, regardless of whether you're bowling sort of low to mid 80s or 90 plus, a Yorker's still hard to hit. So I think, I I think the fact he's done so well over a considerable time period now, I think shows that he is very, very good. I think it is that he just doesn't miss. He won't miss his Yorker. His slow, he's a good change of pace as well. And yeah, I think it's just the fact he doesn't bowl 90 plus. Potentially, people don't look at it, give him the recognition that they should, I think.
That was Somerset's Will Smeed with our favourite, my favourite cricketer journalist of them all, Nick Friend. Nick, of the many things you spoke about, I think two things stood out to me in particular. One was his kind of desire to move away from just being seen as an opener so he can give himself more opportunities. And the second was kind of the importance of training against the red ball despite not playing against it. If we take them one at a time, everyone wants to be an opener in white ball cricket. That is the accepted logic, truth to the situation. So why exactly and how exactly can someone like Smeed move away from that? Because surely Somerset aren't going to say, you know what, we want our best opener to bat 5.
No, it's an interesting one. Like, I feel like the answer in the question away is that everyone wants to do it, and I guess what he's done well is to realise that, if that makes sense. And to be fair to Will, we've spoken a fair few times since he made his blast debut back in 2020. What's always struck me is how thoughtful he is. I don't think he makes rash decisions, which is actually why year and a half on from signing white ball only, I'm still inclined to just think that, no idea how it will end up, but to think that it's probably the right call for him, because I think he does put a lot of thought into this stuff and is quite methodical and quite pragmatic. And the pragmatic decision for any franchise wanting cricketer is to be as selectable as you can be in as many roles as you can be. If you're an overseas opener, openers are a penny. Let's face it. Like, as you said, everyone wants to do it. Everyone can do it. It's the easiest time to bat. There are 2 fielders out. The ball's newer. Skids on. Might swing briefly, but it is the best time to bat. You can take the risks because you've got 10 wickets in hand. All those things. They're the reasons to do it. But it's also the reason not to do it, because you're competing with just about everyone else. And even more so when you're an overseas player, you're looking to overseas comps where you've got a limit on overseas players per team, because this is all about supply and demand, and every country has got those same benefits to open the batting. So you're often competing with local players as well. You're also increasingly competing with franchises who want left-hand, right-hand opening partnerships. So really, you're halving sort of at every juncture. You are halving your chances of getting that gig. And whereas the opposite role, that's sort of the most volatile role in the game, really is sort of batting 6, 7, finishing the innings off, probably the hardest one to quantify in terms of value, in terms of what constitutes a successful season, all those things. And in raw numbers alone, when people look at a quick info profile, let's say, you might see someone's raw stats for somebody who bats all their career at 6, 7. It's going to look nothing like someone who's over the batting for 300 games. But that is the role. And I think if you look at someone like Smeed, he's built to whack the ball out the ground. And I don't know, in a way, I think sort of dropping down to that 5, 6, 7 role is really interesting for him, because he can, you feel like he's got the game for it in a lot of ways, and also having the deal that he's got at Somerset and only playing white ball stuff, he's got a lot of time to work on it as well, and to work on the bits that, hitting wide Yorkers, for example, that the bits that you don't necessarily have to deal with as an opening batter. So
I think that's the point. That point you mentioned there about him having the time to work on something is.
He also mentioned his off spin to me. Like, it's he's not bowled it in. He's not. I don't think he's taken an adult a county wicket.
He hasn't bowled a professional ball.
No, and I think his last county wicket with his off spin was in 2018, the under-17s or something. But to say, like, from as he said there, like, it is something he's aware of. It's something he's working on. It doesn't mean you're going to get a go immediately. And this works the same for Somerset. Like, I don't think what he's not saying as well. In fact, as he clarifies, that he's not saying to Andy Hurry and Jason Kerr, I want to bat at 5, because that Somerset are his primary employers. His job with the team that won the Blast last year, want to win it this year, is to bat where they see fit, and Somerset look at their side and build their squad around Smeed, Banton, open the batting, being the most powerful opening pair in the comp. there might be a bit more wiggle room in the hundreds, because at least you pre-plan, you draft your team every year, and it's different every year. You make subtle changes to it. There might be, who knows, there might be an opportunity there to
an
change it up.
overseas opener might come in.
But equally, Will Smeed has as we remember, Will Smeed hit the first ton in the hundreds, so he's as an opening batter. So it's not that easy to facilitate, as he said there. Like, it may well be that the opportunity comes up because he's at an overseas comp and the bloke who was down to bat 6, tweaks a hamstring in the warm up, and suddenly opportunity opens up, and you go from there and you take 30 off to 15, and it opens up. I think the main thing is he wants people to be aware that he isn't just this bloke who comes out to open the batting, because I think that is a dangerous pigeonholing position to put yourself into as a T20 specialist, as a white ball specialist, because it is the role that everyone gets recognised for.
I think that's quite an interesting. Essentially, as a third party, I kind of see a bit of a disconnect of the continued logic there, where Smeed's taking this decision to be the best, absolute best at what he can be in a specialist role in white ball cricket, and then that kind of train of thought goes, right, I'm really good at white ball cricket, I'm less good at red ball cricket, so I'm going to put my eggs in the white ball basket, and I'm going to be as good as I possibly can be at this thing. And then from within that, he's now spreading out again and going, rather than doubling down on being, I'm just going to be the best opener in the world that I possibly can be, actually, I want to have different strings to my bow within my own specialty. And I think something that I found interesting, which I hadn't really considered, was the fact he still trains against the red ball. Now, even at club cricket, now a lot of club cricket's now split between red ball and white balls. You'll see the ones lads, and they'll be training with white ball during the white ball part of the season. They'll be training with red ball during the red ball part of the season. That's what everyone does. It's kind of meant to be train as you play. And so the fact that actually he feels the need to still train with a red ball, I thought was very interesting. But he's not alone in that respect, is he?
No, I mean, so I first discussed this with him about a year ago. I'd interviewed Carlos Brathwaite the year before, and Brathwaite said to me that his big regret from his career over the last 8 years was that there was a time when post 2016, so Carlos Brathwaite made his Test debut shortly before the World T20 that changed his whole career. He didn't take many wickets with the ball, and he's got enormous bowling.
Was this the Australia series?
I think so. But so he
batted really well away in Australia.
He batted really well in Australia, and he took like 3 wickets at 160 apiece or something, which he doesn't like talking about. But he went from this guy, a lot of red balls, who had a very solid base as a batter, to becoming this bloke who was known for essentially hitting 3 balls over the leg side for 6. And with that, his whole career changed. And with that, his whole mindset changed. Everyone wants to play T20 cricket. He's hardly played a first-class game since. Certainly hasn't played a Test since. And he said to me, the one thing that he got wrong in that initial period was he went away from hitting red balls. He thought, my job is to hit 30 off 10 at the death, and I'll do that best by having blokes throw white balls at me, and I'll whack it over long on. Now, he then took a winter away, or a portion of a winter away, and just basically went back to basics, faced the red ball, rediscovered his technique, or not so much his technique as his base, his platform. And he put it really simplicity and said, look, if you can face the red ball, you can face the white ball. It's quite, if you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball kind of thing. Like, it's...
I think this is really interesting, though, because just to interrupt you, because that's the kind of bit which I think is really interesting about people's decisions to go to a white ball only contract. Because surely, if Smeed sits down,
I know what you're going to say.
If the whole point is that batting against the red ball improves you against the white ball, and you want to be a very good white ball player, is there not an inherent value in continuing to play red ball cricket? Then surely that is ultimately the debate.
No, because I guess it is. It isn't. I think what he's doing is, I think by hitting against the red ball, he's accepting that there is value to it, but there's a difference in time as much as anything to hitting against red balls in training and using the red ball as a training mechanism in the same way that you would use a ramp to catch slip, to take slippers against in training. You don't stick out on the field, but there's a difference between doing that and playing 7 2 games in a row, 3 days, when actually he could be using most of those 3 days to train his white ball game. That's the difference. So he's still you continue training against the red ball because you recognise the importance, the value of facing the swinging ball, that is harder. as everyone would tell you. Having those fundamentals, those basics in place that then mean that you can go and spend the rest of that time that he's got now that he wouldn't have had then if he was. And as he says, that he averaged close to 10, I think, in his last 2's year of 3-day stuff. Like, you didn't feel like he was any. A lot of this stems from not thinking he was very good at red ball cricket and being in a very, very unusual spot of seeing his white ball cricket go like that as a very young player.
Yeah.
As red ball cricket being nowhere near it. He's probably he's not exaggerating the point, but it's a very theoretical point he makes there that if you didn't have white ball cricket, you'd probably been released from his contract as Somerset as a 20-year-old. That's very theoretical. White ball cricket is increasingly the game. But yeah, I think the importance. I find the red ball bit really interesting because I think a lot of people imagine, blokes going away from red ball cricket entirely, and imagine white ball training is guys range hitting for 5 hours a day.
That's what I think of, to be fair.
Yeah, exactly. So that's
put it on the road.
Exactly. That is the thing. I think it's interesting. I find it really interesting to know that he does do that. And he did tongue in cheek make the point as well that his 200 odd runs at 50 odd in the West of England Prem this season have come against the red ball as well. So he's tongue in cheek, but he's hitting 150. He is hitting red balls, and sure, very different game. Bit of Bridgewater CC versus MI Emirates, where it was over the winter with like Piran and Pollard. But
very similar. But
there is a serious point in there somewhere. And I find him a really interesting guy and player to talk to because he is doing something very different and he is working out in real time. Because no one's really done it the way, as you said at the start, no one's done it the way he's done it before with no first class cricket behind him. He's not a Ravi Bopara, someone who's played however many 20 odd seasons of first class cricket first.
That's ultimately the point, isn't it? That he's unique in this. He's the first person embarking on.
He's a self guinea pig, if that is such a thing.
And I think it's a very good way of describing it. And I think, of course, we can sit here, or I can sit here, and you can nitpick, and you can be like, "Oh, is this the right way of doing it?" But the only person who's learning that as it goes on is Smeed himself. And before we move on, just to the blast, I think something that you've just reminded me there with him. Smeed using club cricket, and if he continues to play club cricket as a tool, I remember Chris Green talking about that, the Australian off spinner, where I'd ask him like, do you enjoy playing club cricket? And he was like, mate, it's the only time I get to bowl 10 overs. Like I get to put together a spell as opposed to just bowling 24 individual deliveries, and I can work on my stock delivery and I can work on different things. And he used the club game as almost that tool to then benefit his professional T20 career. And in that professional T20 league that is in England called the Blast, Lancashire at top of the North Group, and Smeed Somerset at the time of recording are top of the South. Games happening all the time, things move around, volatile. So if you are listening to this in a few days' time, both of those things may no longer be the case. But to kind of pick out a couple of themes, first, I think with the fact that we've had Lancashire top of the North Group as things stand, and Surrey not quite top, but 3 wins out of 4. In theory, Nicholas Friend, in theory, this was the time when they were meant to be a bit weaker because they had, Butler, Salt, Livingston is away for Lancashire, Topley, Jordan, Jacks, and Curran away for Surrey. But they seem to be going all right.
They're coping, yes.
Yes, they are indeed coping.
It's It's so much more to add, really. They're doing all right, aren't they?
I thought we spoke, but I thought it was going to be a little bit case of the haves and have-nots, and the big counties are still being okay. But a big county that's not doing okay at the moment, is there cause for concern for Nottinghamshire? Played 5, lost 5. In my mind, historically, both in the recent past and going back 20 years, not so like the T20 boys. They have a big night out in Nottingham. The short, weird boundary to the one side. They kind of win at home. Trent Bridge on a Thursday evening or Friday evening is the place to be for a T20. They keep losing. Is that a problem, or are they close enough?
That's a problem.
I agree.
I'd say there are subtly there's a fair bit going on, isn't there? And if it's Ben Duckett, obviously Ben Duckett's with England in the Caribbean for one thing. They lose Alex Hales in a couple of games' time to the Lanka Premier League. They've got a new captain in Joe Clark. They've lost 8 overs of sort of pretty surefire finger spin, and Samit Patel, who's gone to Derbyshire, and Matt Carter, who left before the blast started. I think Liam Patterson-White he's been around for years, it feels like, made his T20 debut, professional T20 debut a couple of weeks ago. And that feels so incongruous with how long it's been about, but it also speaks to the consistency they've had from those two spinners. I don't think it would be unfair to say that Ben Lister is an example of where overseas recruitment's been a bit tougher this year. They had Shaheen Sharafidi there last year for a bit of the comp too. He's good. He famously, he is good. It is. There's a fair bit going on. They've got a few new players in there, and Jack Haynes, Dylan Pennington, Josh Tung's not played yet. I don't know. But you would still say you look down that side, and it's got a lot of match winners, a lot of guys who've won a lot of Blast games before. I mean, they won the Blast in 2020. It feels, as you say, it feels like they're at finals day or there or thereabouts most years.
Absolutely.
So it's surprising. And Peter Moores has been coaching in T20 comps abroad, isn't he? So it is a surprise, absolutely. But I think it also speaks to how competitive the North Group is in particular. I think the North Group is wide open in a way that not the South Group isn't, but I think the South Group tends to be more predictable, doesn't it, with the top 4, top 5. But if you look at how some of the sides of the North Group have recruited this year, Derbyshire are much stronger. A few T20 specialists have come in there over the winter. Northants look like such a fun team with the makeup of their top 7 or 8. So I don't know. It is obviously surprising for the reasons that it is surprising, but I think there are some mitigating factors there that mean this is perhaps a bit of a transitional year as well.
Kick him out the comp, in my opinion. Not good enough. Played 14, lost 14. That could be a great rule to introduce to Canton Championship. If you go played 14, lose 14 in the T20 Blast, you lose first-class professional status. This is the jeopardy that's required in the modern game, Nick. Finally, on the topic,
it's such a thoughtful podcast, and that bit will get clipped out.
Absolutely, I hope it does. I believe that it's not something I've just thought of 20 seconds
ago.
At the end of the
season, there should be I hope you sort of clip together all of your bits of like ECB administration.
Yeah, mate, that's a great idea. We were trying to do like a special episode in a few weeks' time. I've kind of made that up as well, and we can just go through all the themes. Anyway, Sussex's Ollie Robinson, England's Ollie Robinson. He's playing his first T20 cricket since 2021, and whisper it loudly, he's looking pretty good. Well. It's going really well. He hasn't taken the number of wickets, but his economy rate below 6 and over, kind of hitting the top of the stumps at 80 mile an hour. Like, kind of, what's wrong with that?
I was at the Oval last Friday to watch him do that, and it is so much fun. And it's a bit like I said there with how incongruous it was to see Liam Patterson-White having not played T20 before. There's something really weird about watching Ollie Robinson run in coloured clothing. It's like when your favourite player leaves the football club he's played for 10 years.
When Torres went to Chelsea.
It's like when Torres went to Chelsea, it's like, mate, what are you doing in blue? It makes no sense. Like when for us, like when Adel Taarabt turned up at Fulham on loan, it's like, mate, wrong ground. You're 20 minutes out.
Wrong kit.
But like, it's so odd. But it's been really fun to watch. He's bowled. They've used a bit like Somerset used Craig Overton the last couple of years. He bowls three up front. With the new ball in the power play, just challenges white ball openers' techniques. He bowled Laurie Evans with one that jagged back and hit the top of off. A few guys have cut. Ollie Pope came down the pitch to him a couple of times, but he doesn't miss. And like we all know, that's what Ollie Robinson does in red ball cricket. And it's been, I don't know, I've really enjoyed watching him transfer it across. As you say, he'd hardly played a game. He played about 50 odd games in 10 years. But I spoke to Paul Farbrace after the Surrey game, where Sussex were exceptional, won by 50 odd runs at the Oval. So Farbrace was at Yorkshire when Robinson made his T20 debut back in 2014, and they initially picked him in professional cricket for T20 cricket because he was this tall right arm seamer who could spear in a good Yorker. He actually bowled the death overs for Yorkshire originally back in 2014, and because he hits his Yorker well, and he, as Farby put it to me, he said, "You've got 2 jobs as a bowler in T20 cricket. You hit the bottom of the bat or the top of the bat, and you avoid the bit in between." Which I thought was a lovely way of putting it.
I really enjoyed that.
I don't know why I credited him with it. I could just nick that myself. But it's a lovely way of looking at it. I think Robinson does that pretty well because he hits the splice with his natural length, and he, as I say, he's got a pretty good Yorker. It's been really fun watching him. He's not gone at sevens once in the comp, and he comes back and can bowl the occasional over the death if you need him. And it's talk about incongruous. Like having him and Tymor Mills bowling it different. You've got two guys of, similar ages, both have played for England, but could you put together two more different careers and different styles of bowler than Mills and Robinson? Like and Mills, by the way, is captaining brilliantly. I think he's having a really good time doing it. They're a fun side and a good side to watch. And just as Notts are having a tough year this year after being very good in the Blast for a very long time, Sussex had a couple of poor years after a very good side for a long while, which of course Robinson hardly played in because they had this Galactico white ball attack.
That's effectively it, where Ollie Robinson, why hasn't he been playing? There's a bit of England central contract stuff in there. There's a bit of, when he started, he wasn't really the sexy bowler and they'd rather have kind of Mills and Rashid Khan, and a lot of factors have come into it. We've come out the other side. And hey, correct. Hey, Ollie Robinson bowling in T20 cricket is why Will Smeed is training against the red ball. Got to test your technique against the technicians of the sport.
It's beautifully
I've wrapped it all together. Thank you very much. Nobody covers county cricket like the cricketer, or segues and loops everything together like I do. I don't know if that's true. And you get access to our coverage of all 18 teams online from as little as £3.99 a month. Our own top team of county championships have now won the outstanding online coverage of domestic cricket prize at the ECB Journalism Awards for 6 years running, so you don't have to take our word for it. That is all from us this week. If you are interested in subscribing, just click in the show notes to subscribe. There is a link there. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Will Smeed. I've been Cameron. He's been Nick. We'll see you all and speak to you all next week.